Mr. Raj Joshua Thomas.
Sir, I thank the Honourable NCMPs for raising the motion. I will not be able to support the motion as introduced by the NCMPs. While I agree that the Speaker of Parliament should be impartial and that Parliament should be a fair arena for debate, I cannot agree with the original motion's call for the Speaker to be independent. The term independent in the context of Parliament or in politics has a particular definition. In his speech, Mr. Leong appears to have conflated the words independent and impartial, but the fact that they both appear in the motion suggests that they are intended to mean different things. When applied to a member of Parliament, the term of independence would generally mean that that MP is not affiliated with a political party. This definition is used not only in Singapore, but in most, if not all, parliamentary democracies. Article 42 of the Constitution provides that the Speaker of Parliament may be elected from amongst MPs who are not ministers or parliamentary secretaries, or from amongst persons who are not MPs. The Constitution does not require that a Speaker, whether drawn from MPs or a non-MP, to be independent. Furthermore, Article 46(2)(b) of the Constitution also provides that an MP's seat would fall vacant if he ceases to be a member of, or is expelled, or resigns from the political party for which he stood in the election. Therefore, it is a non sequitur argument to expect that an MP elected as Speaker should resign from the party he had been elected into Parliament, as he would lose that seat. As such, this motion, as it was originally crafted, would be envisioning a situation where only non-MPs, MPs who stood in the elections as independents and won or nominated members of Parliament could be considered for the position of Speaker. Let me deal first with independent MPs. First, there have not been any independents elected to the Singapore Parliament since independence, so this option can be dispensed with immediately. Second, I have read media reports suggesting that NMPs be considered. But, sir, we are quite honestly hardly a proper source, given that our term is only half of a parliament's full term, although some of us may serve 2 terms, but it is not usual. But we are not senior, nonetheless, backbenchers with sufficient experience to chair the House and to carry out all the other roles of the Speaker. We would not want a revolving door of inexperienced speakers. In any event, given that speakers do not take part in debates, it would be contrary to the objectives of having NMPs, which is to provide for alternative voices in Parliament. As regards a non-MP serving as Speaker, there have been 2 such speakers, as mentioned by the Honourable Member Mr. Nair. The first was Mr. A.P. Raja, who was the first Speaker of the Parliament of Singapore. He was the holdover Speaker from the previous Legislative Assembly of Singapore. Mr. Raja had at one time been a member of the Legislative Assembly and was an eminent lawyer. He later became an ambassador and High Court judge. The second Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Punch Coomaraswamy, was also a non-MP. Mr. Coomaraswamy was also an eminent lawyer and later also served as an ambassador and High Court judge. All speakers since then, as mentioned by both Mr. Leong and Mr. Nair, have been elected MPs from the ruling party. I do not know the exact reason why the first 2 speakers were non-MPs, but I can fathom that it may well be because Parliament was young at the time and wanted to have eminent local lawyers who would be familiar with formal procedure to chair the House in its early years. Once MPs had sufficient experience, they were called upon to serve as speakers and have done so until today. And they have done a good job, and their fairness has largely not been questioned by members on both sides of the House. Furthermore, even a cursory survey of current elected MPs would throw up many names who have the knowledge, experience, temperament, and wisdom to serve as Speaker. It is only if we cannot find one within that we should look without, and we can find many elected MPs to take up the role. As mentioned by both the Honourable Member, Mr. Nair, our Singapore system is different from the UK system, where the Speaker upon his election severs ties with his former political party so that he is, in all aspects of the job, a completely non-partisan figure. This independent character of the Speaker was attained over a long, gradual and uneven process over 300 years, and it evolved in response to the particular political situation in the UK. Members may know the origins of the position of the Speaker in the UK. The Speaker is called the Speaker because he was a person appointed to speak to the King on behalf of the House of Commons. the Speaker was expected to provide the King with the politically unvarnished views of the House. And it was considered a dangerous position, as speakers were from time to time subject to the guillotine if the King was not happy with what the Speaker spoke. Thankfully, Mr. Speaker, sir, this is no longer a hazard of that office or of your office. And it is in this regard that I will also take this opportunity to congratulate you in your elevation to the chair. The role of the Speaker in the UK has evolved, with its independent nature solidified in both procedure and custom in the 19th century. Such custom includes, for example, that an incumbent Speaker runs in the general elections not under a political party ticket, but as Madam or Mr. Speaker in elections, and is generally unopposed. The UK Parliament also abides by what is known as the continuity principle, when an incumbent Speaker, after being re-elected in the general elections, would be re-elected as Speaker even if there was a change of the party forming the government. This custom is not something that is present in our system. And most other jurisdictions that have a Westminster-type parliament also do not have an independent Speaker. India and Canada flirted with the idea, but both came to the conclusion that an MP who was elected as Speaker could be impartial without having to be independent. The Canadian Parliament rejected the notion that impartiality required independence and considered it a non sequitur argument. It was not considered an unreasonable expectation of the Speaker to separate his party allegiances with his duty to Parliament. It also determined that it did not possess the customary nor procedural history that the UK had to support an independent Speaker, an argument I similarly make in relation to our House. In India, the committee considering this question came to similar conclusions as the Canadian Parliament. In addition, the Indian Supreme Court had also opined on this matter, and its pronouncement is worth mentioning because it sets out the underlying rationale as to why a party-affiliated Speaker could still be impartial. In the case Srimant Balasaheb Patil and Honourable Speaker of Karnataka, the court was faced with the petitions of 5 members of the Karnataka State Parliament against the Speaker of that House who had refused to accept their resignations. The court said, and I quote, "The Speaker, being a neutral person, is expected to act independently while conducting the proceedings of the House or adjudication of any petitions. The constitutional responsibility endowed upon him has to be scrupulously followed. The court made it clear that his political affiliations cannot come in the way of adjudication." The court continued that if the Speaker is not able to dissociate from his political party and behaves contrary to the spirit of neutrality and independence, such person does not deserve to be reposed with public trust and confidence. In other words, the court was saying that it is incumbent then on that House to invoke the relevant procedures to correct or, if necessary, to remove the Speaker. All this having been said, I come back to first principles. That is, that our Constitution does not require that our Speaker be independent. Procedurally, I do not think that this House can affirm a motion that is inconsistent with the Constitution or that would purport to constrain the provisions of the Constitution. I will, however, support the motion as amended by the Honourable Member Mr. Nair, as it addresses my concerns that we do not inadvertently affirm that the Speaker be a political independent, meaning not being part of a political party, but instead that he should discharge his duties independently and impartially, which is indeed what we should expect of the Speaker. It may seem a small change, but Mr. Nair's amendment changes the meaning of the motion and removes doubt as to what exactly Parliament is affirming. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you for your good wishes and also that of Associate Professor James Lim and Mr. Vikram Nair.